So one of my favorite things about you is the type of CTO that you are. So you have, it's not just straight engineering right up through individual contributor, team lead, CTO. You've done like strategic stuff, like business stuff. And I'm really curious to hear your story about how you professionally got, it looks like you've been at your company for a while.
Sure.
Looks
Yeah.
like over 10 years, 12 years. And tell me a little bit about your story growing up through your current company.
Okay. Yeah. So I've been with Impact. It'll be 13 years this summer. So definitely, uh, looking back a long time. I started with them right out of college, and so I had a degree that at the time, pretty much a management information system degree, and didn't want to do just typical IT help desk stuff. So I was kind of looking for something unique and new, and came to Impact. We were a much smaller company then. We were probably 45 employees, maybe 15 million. And today we're 600 employees, about 130 million this year. Much different company, but I think the biggest thing that I saw was the vision and more or less the opportunity to grow with a new part of their business, which will eventually be called strategic services, and implementing software, and more or less the software is focused around document management at the time and document capture. And it was a newer division, and I saw an opportunity to take a risk at the time, graduating from college, and didn't have a lot of responsibility, honestly, right? So if I was going to try something new, I can always revert back to a comfort zone that I was very comfortable with, which was traditional IT, but kind of fell in love with Impact and the culture and their vision for opportunity. And, I think we both took advantage of it as far as Impact and myself.
So good culture. What type of things do you guys value there?
Um, you know, from Frank Kuko, who's our CEO, on down, culture and the employees really comes first. The majority of the owners who started Impact from scratch, they kind of built it upon what they didn't want the company to do or become based on their experience, and so they focused on that. And they figured if we can make employees happy and they want to come to work every day and they're passionate about what they do and they care about what they do, then that'll spill over into good customer service. And seems to be working. We have very, very high customer retention rate. We have very low turnover of our employees, and we value culture first and foremost within the organization.
Nice. And clearly that's very important, especially when going through the growth you went through from 45 to 600. And I talk with people every day that experience that type of hyper growth, and the recurring conversation when I ask them what their takeaways are from that, they're like scaling culture. Like in
Sure.
each and every department, like when it's tight and you've got, 10, 50 people, you can access the CEO, you can watch how they walk through the room and show up to work, and that spreads throughout. But when you get to that like 100 mark, it becomes really difficult, and you rely on your leaders, to have the behaviors that you desire for them to spread throughout the organization.
Yeah, and we obviously try and keep a close eye on that. And so there's a number of other partners within the organization now that have to kind of carry that torch. But to this day, our CEO's office, his door is wide open. Any employee from administration to warehouse can walk in and have a conversation with them. He never wants to lose that connection. Having 18 locations, we still have to make sure that culture carries through to each of those locations. And so we have a big promote from within type of culture. We want, especially on well, not even that. I mean, our sales teams, to the people in our admin, to our warehouse, to everything. We try and find people who are really excelling and are doing things, the Impact way. And those are people that get promoted and start carry on the culture with their own teams.
And that makes sense too, because if you have a good culture, right, and you're growing your people and you're teaching them to grow and improve themselves, and you are always taking people in from the outside, you're eliminating the opportunities for those people that are growing themselves to rise up, right? To
Sure.
see a future for themselves. So I really like that because it's how we run our tribe over here is why I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I think we have a really good set of employees at Impact, and I think the biggest thing that when managers and hiring managers interview is they look to make sure that there's a cultural fit, that person will fit within the organization. We have no problem hiring entry level people and working with them to develop their personal and professional skills, but we want to make sure that they're as passionate as we are about the things that we're doing.
And that's that famous like chart, right, where they map out how much skill you have and how much of a culture fit you are, and it says
Sure.
if they're high skill and high culture fit, that's great. If they're low skill and low culture fit, no. They,
Right.
yeah, you could definitely teach skill, but weeding out behavior is like so difficult. You have to change the entire environment. It's actually very difficult to adjust behavior.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and we do a lot of things as a company to have common goals to get behavior all going towards the same direction. So we have, over the course of the last 6 years, we actually have targets that if we hit those targets, then any employee who's been with the organization a year or more at that point, we actually do all-inclusive trips to Mexico, and so
Ooh.
you get people from finance and admin and warehouse and sales and service and help desk and support, all working towards a common goal that's very visible and very much broadcasted daily, holding people accountable. And the people who aren't part of that, I would say it's very easy to see who those people are, and it's not really an issue, because I think the culture now kind of I don't want to say self-manages, but helps us achieve that common goal. So when you have, hundreds of people all rooting towards what that could be and the amount of fun that we could have, that's exciting stuff. And that's the stuff we've hit it. Let's see, 5 years in a row. So
Nice. It's like autonomous leadership, right?
right.
I heard somebody say that we had, Daily Motion, they're like a video company.
Yeah.
They actually came out, I didn't know this, but they came out like right around the time YouTube did. They've always been like a competitor with YouTube, but their CTO is named Guillaume, and he's like fantastic, right? And he was sharing some of his management leadership ideas, and he had this one, and he said autonomous leadership. And since the moment I heard him say that, like we made clips of it, I wrote like an article about it, because it sounds like the next wave buzzword, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I think it makes sense, and I'm, as far as the teams that I have, we try and have the leaders work with their teams, and like I said, once that based on how visible that goal is and who's working towards it, everyone's doing their part, and the company doesn't function without any of of our employees. They're all here for a reason, and so we want to make sure that everyone gets a reward when the company does well.
I love it. We have our metrics that matter over here, and we track them. Right now, we do this thing because we only have about 11 people, 9 in the office. We all have metrics that we own. So like one person's in charge of every metric, even if it touches multiple teams, like one person owns the metric. And then on Fridays, we do a 90-second lightning round where each person who owns the metric stands up. They get 90 seconds to say how they grew personally, how they grew professionally, and how they're doing on their metrics. And so that's like the requirements to work here. Every week you have to do something to grow personally, you have to
Sure.
grow professionally, and you have to hit your metrics, give an update on metrics. And we started that, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, I kind of look back at just my own path as far as getting from entry level to where I'm at today, and I wouldn't say it's as formal as what you have there, which sounds really really well organized and holds people accountable. But we grew fast. We had the right people. We developed the right people, and those people develop people, and we all hold each other accountable through that. And so I've had multiple different positions as we get as gone through over the last 13 years. But none of those would happen without other people taking their roles seriously, and without taking advantage of the opportunities that we mutually had together. So
And that's the beautiful thing about a culture is it decides what's right for itself. And then that breeds creativity. And then people start sharing about what came out of their culture and like what happened. And then other companies can try it and see if it fits with them. And it's, I don't know, it's a whole new, as I'm, getting into my 30s, I'm 31 now. So like, as I'm getting in my 30s, it's like a whole new world from being quiet, introverted engineer, writing code and caring about the speed of the everything, to figuring out that it's about people and business only exists because of people. Like everything we do is just to drive humans and whatever, like you can't exist in the market without being useful to someone.
Yeah. And, obviously we wouldn't grow, roughly, I don't know, 25, 26% on average year over year without adapting our business model.
Right.
And I think that's even part of our culture is constantly adapting what we bring to market, how we bring it to market, and the people we need in order to execute on that go-to-market strategy. And so that's getting faster for sure. If I look at what we started, what we were doing when I started, 5 years after that, 5 years after that, and almost 5 years after that, we are doing things today that I wouldn't even have dreamt about. And those are just more or less a starting point. We're constantly going to adapt how we go to market, and a culture has got to breed some of that creativity. It's also got to breed the leaders it takes to bring these new business offerings to the market and to be able to hit customers' expectations.
Let's talk about it. You as leader, I don't know which came first, you being booked on the show or you providing a quote for what we're doing.
About the same time, I think.
Was it about the same time?
Yeah.
But I saw your quote and I was like, you could tell a lot about somebody by the books on their bookshelf, right?
Okay.
And you could tell a lot about somebody. Like, here's the secret of the quote. I send that out to find like people that I like.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
We figure out, like, we put them in the newsletter. Did you know that you're going in the book too, or did you not know about that?
No, I did not know about that.
Okay, so we've over the course of this time, we've gotten so many quotes and for our newsletters and for the different things that we use them for. And finally, we said, "Oh, I've got these books on my desk at work, like 365 days of motivational quotes or whatever." It's like, let's do one for technology leaders, and we'll do a quote every day.
Okay.
And we'll, make it look like the memes where it's like cool design quotes,
Oh, sure.
and we'll put that up into a book and distribute it on Amazon and just send it out to past guests. We do stuff like that all the time, like in gift bags or whatever. And so we came up with that idea, and I was like so excited about it.
Yeah, that sounds neat. I'll definitely have to get one. But as far as the quote, I think that stands. Obviously, I passionately believe it. You have to be inspired by the person who's going to lead you, and be somewhat of an inspiration to the people you're leading, but also be inspired by the people that work with you and for you as well, because it's up to them to bring everything together. And so we can have these great ideas, but unless they're passionate and inspired and like to do what they're doing and want to do it for the organization and the company, then it doesn't matter. But if they're having fun and doing all that other stuff and it all comes together, that is really what excites me is watching those employees be proud of their work. It's part of Impact's culture. The owners and leaders that lead this company, I believe, are an inspiration to all employees.
Yeah, I like you even more now that we're talking. So let's take it back. Let's talk a little bit of tech and then a little bit of leadership, because leadership's on my mind. I'm going to start with that.
Okay.
Let's take it back to, you got young Frank, right?
Okay.
He just got into this position and he's fixing to go from working on a team to having responsibility of other people to grow them, that first time leader transition.
Sure.
Everybody has a story. What is your takeaway from that experience?
I think looking back, I'd like to think I was smarter than I was, but honestly, I think there's a certain amount of luck in there as far as finding impact. what drew me to Impact, and even though we were a much smaller company, and yeah, we had aspirations, but or at the time they had aspirations, but I had no idea that it would turn out to be one of the best decisions I've made, really in my adult life. And besides marrying my wife, having my kids, and all that
Oh
stuff,
yeah. All that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, I'll put that little asterisk there. But
Yes.
it was an opportunity that, like I said, it was something that I felt comfortable taking. It was, relatively low risk at the time. I didn't have kids, or wasn't responsible for anyone really but myself as far as getting into the marketplace, getting to work, getting a job. And, so there's a certain amount of luck to it that I found them, but I saw an opportunity, and I wanted to give anything, and now looking at resumes, I see a bunch of people who switch jobs every year or 2 years or 3 years, and that's fine. That's not for everybody. For me, I wanted to give my first thing 5 years at least, because I felt like I couldn't learn something new, even a year or two at a young graduate age, without really giving it, years of my life and trying to make that work. So that was my first goal, was to just make it through the first 5 years. And then getting into that point is really when the economy started to, struggle a little bit through 09 and 10 and 11. And that was my first time to be a manager, was around that time. So it was a challenging market. Impact wasn't immune to some of those challenges, but we emerged from that a really strong, a really focused company. Since that point going forward, we've looked nowhere but up as far as the opportunities and what we can accomplish.
All right, I want to dig a little deeper.
Okay.
Because we get messy on the show. Human wise, like what was the you became leader of a team,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a recurring topic I ask about first time leaders.
Okay.
And there's always issues. There's always a lesson, a takeaway, whether it's listening or understanding people or whatever. There's something in your mind, you don't have to share the exact story. Okay. First of all, I'm just saying that all I want is the theme or the takeaway of what your big lesson was being a leader for the first time.
You can't always expect things to get done the way that you did them. You can maybe expect similar results, but I got in a lot of, I don't want to say issues, but challenges trying to say, this is the way we're going to do it. This is how it needs to be done. This is the way I've done it. It works. Just do it. And so the biggest thing is learning, obviously how to delegate and how to let go of certain things that just aren't meaningful enough to matter when you're getting the same result out of it.
Yes, that is what I'm talking about, right? That is hard. That is real when people are, our audience is, CTOs, engineers, people trying to level up in their career, trying to grow. And they're in their jobs right now and listening to this on their commutes or at work. And they're experiencing the rawness of having to, deal with issues for the first time, right? Everything from people having, personal issues that are affecting their performance to metrics. One of the ones that I always is I was super metric driven. Why? I was always about oh, did you hit that? Did you hit that? Why isn't it? Then I realized it's a human writing the code. And sometimes the human has problems, and sometimes they're not related at all to the work.
Sure.
And so you got to go coach up the human side of things in order for the rest of the pipeline to produce correctly.
Yeah. So, and I think obviously every person's different, and I have a few different groups that ultimately now report up to me, and some of them are very sales client facing, and they're responsible for quotas. Some of them are project managers. Some of them are developers. Some of them are systems integrators. Some of them are managers. Some of them are directors, and so you get a really unique set of personalities when you go from a sales focused team to a development focused team, and trying to bridge that gap and making sure everyone's working nicely together. So I would agree. And there's probably employees that'll listen to this eventually, and they're laughing at probably some of the stories that we could probably tell that when we were first getting started, that understand where that's coming from. So
it's so difficult. Sales makes all the money. but product makes the product. And
Sure.
it's like this, it's this two tower thing, and you have to bridge it. Meanwhile, you're dealing with, not only are you dealing with two different ideas in the business that are both very important, right? They need each other, but you're dealing with typically people who are near opposite in personality. And so now you have to appease both groups and communicate between both of them to keep everything running smoothly. But that's why you get paid as a leader.
Yeah, and honestly, we're fortunate to have the culture that we do, and we're all part of that culture, and we all have to work towards it. But
Oh yeah.
we don't have a lot of the issues and the boundaries and red tape and politics, and that's part of making Impact. I believe what makes Impact what it is today is, a lot of companies, there would be, huge, borders between sales and operations and, development and tech support and all that. But here we're all, we're all in this together, and there's all common goals. And, I can't stress that enough. We're really fortunate to have the culture that we do, that we spend as much time and energy focusing on it.
I love it. I love it because that's what works. That sort of like integrated pod style is really useful. Okay, so now you're going from running a team, your
Yeah.
first team, you got through it, you learned how to delegate, you learned that you can't be too specific about it and you have to convince people and get their buy-in. And now you're going to your first time running teams of teams. So now you're
Mm-hmm.
interacting with leaders directly. What's your takeaway from that one?
You try and not have them repeat the same mistakes, but obviously people are going to go through, their own learning cycle. So, I mean, the same thing, right? They're going to want to do things, what's made them successful and how to rinse and repeat that. But I think everyone goes through those same sort of challenges as first time managers, and most of the people that we promoted, are first time managers. So you got to spend some time with them, and they need to learn to let go, and they need to understand it. You don't want to be the one saying, I told you so you're going to watch that a little bit, but you just have to work with them to make sure that they know that they can lean on you when they need support. They know to ask for it when they need support. They know to delegate to you when necessary, and not try and be that complete shield of, whatever it is that is either a challenge or an issue or a customer issue or too much, workload or need to add people or interview, whatever it is. They have to know that they can lean on you to help alleviate some of that stress, and obviously vice versa.
So important thing that I like that you said, but I want to highlight it a little bit, is in that second role of you running team leads. First, when you went into team lead, it was you learning that. But now that you were leading other team leads, it was you coaching those people through it, which is a different skill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's again, it's another learning. Definitely take some time, and you gotta, again, not be in a position where you're trying to just tell them what to do, but you gotta let them make mistakes and then kind of peel back the onion a little bit, figure out what caused it, and try and find ways that they can work through that the next time without maybe getting somebody else involved.
It's so much like having kids. It's scary.
I wouldn't tell them that, but I might tell my kids.
No, I wouldn't. That's not professional advice from us. But I will tell you this: like it's really interesting because you could sit there and tell them it's hot all day, but they're gonna touch it, like,
Right.
and then they know it's hot,
Yeah.
So
and there's certain situations where you like, okay, well, maybe you could have brought that one to me a little sooner than maybe you did, but obviously they have to learn how to handle whatever challenges those are that are coming through, and there's going to be new sets of challenges all the time.
one of my favorite pieces of leadership advice from past guests was creating an environment where it's safe for them to make those mistakes.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool because you can't just tell them what to do. You can't just feed them the answers, but the thing you can control as a leader is that they're in an environment where it's safe to fail.
Yeah. And, I think you can't be afraid to make mistakes, and you got to be willing to I don't say take those risks, but to be able, push the envelope, because that's how a company like Impact is going to stay on the edge and bring new products and services to market. We were perfectly comfortable where we were, but no one likes being comfortable, at least not at our
No,
company.
that's not my vibe, man.
Right.
It's like if you're comfortable, something's wrong. You're
Right.
not growing right now. You're either growing or you're dying. Like I don't like that comfort zone.
Yeah, and if you ask our owner, Frank, as far as why he keeps doing what he does with Impact, is he wants the employees to be successful, and the only way to keep making employees successful and keep having them grow personally and professionally is to keep Impact growing, and so we can keep creating new leaders, getting into new different products and services, and keep that cycle going. And if we weren't a growing company, some of the stuff that we've hired on and interviewed on and said that there's opportunity. Just take my example from entry level college to where I'm at today. If Impact wasn't a growing company, that opportunity is a lot smaller for me and a lot smaller for everybody else. So that's also part of it, and we have to get people out of their comfort zones on a regular basis.
Let's talk about that, about you going to CTO, right? Because there was 45 people there when you started, right? And you have a
Sure.
culture of growing, so that's you're on a good team.
Mm-hmm.
You're at a good growing company. Why did Frank make it to CTO? What was different about you? Like, what qualities would the other Frank, your CEO, say that you possess that got you to where you are today?
Yeah. So, I obviously ask myself that question a lot as far as, am I fulfilling the role the way that, I envisioned it, and also the way Impact envisioned it? There's a lot of people that I worked with at the time when I started that are now in other leadership positions. Doug Gamache, who's our CIO, he started 2 or 3 years before me. There's people in sales that are now GMs and also partners within the company that have gotten promoted into the ranks. So, honestly, I think we found our niches as far as what we were going to be successful at. But it's I kind of brought it to Frank, our owner, as far as the creation of this position and what we needed. One, we needed to be able to launch new products and services and do that pretty effectively. And may not work when you're 100 million. And so we had to address a lot of our own challenges as we're a fast growing company. We're not immune to the same challenges that we help our customers with. So we had business processes and side processes and you name it, and stuff that just had to be focused on in order to facilitate Impact's growth. And so me and our CIO work closely hand in hand, and we kind of divvy up responsibilities. Obviously, there's some overlap, but to keep Impact growing, and that was really my pitch was, one, Impact should be its own best case study for the products and services that we're offering, and there's obviously room for improvement, because there has to be. When you go from X to where we are today in 3 years, which is double the size of the company, stuff is going to start to show some stress cracks, and we want to make sure that we got ahead of that and allowed us to keep the company growing and maximizing our employee talent.
Nice. I like it. And so you were innovative in the sense that you identified this need and proposed this role as the solution to it.
Yeah, and I'm in a unique spot because I'm responsible for a lot of customer-facing activities, which is really fun, and obviously different types of challenges and customer use cases that come to light. But now, I would say Impact is probably our most complicated customer, and we're fast growing. We have a lot of business offerings that we offer. Some of them work nice and relate to one another, and some are unique sets of offerings. For example, our managed marketing services is a unique offering where we'll do brand strategy and marketing and a whole bunch of services around that for organizations. So the same team that has to process those types of contracts, it's the same team that has to process our managed IT and our digital transformation contracts as well with our customers. So we bring a full set of challenges to the table every day that we want to address and make it easier for our employees to really do their work.
Now that's it. I like you mentioned that word digital transformation because I thought it was over. Like, because it was like such a buzzword for so long.
Yeah.
Like, all right, it's over. But then I'm talking to people who are professionals working at this higher level, doing these larger contracts, getting companies off of mainframes. Still, like this is not over. It, in fact, is like just maybe in like 30 to 40% of it. Like it's still going. It's like, I don't even think it's hit its peak, this digital transformation thing.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you. You know, the buzz term got really popular and probably overused. You know, we're using it because it sums up nicely the set of services that Impact offers, and so we're putting a full kind of marketing effort around that right now, because everything from our managed IT services to our business process services to our document management services to managing print and documents to our managed marketing services, no matter what, we're either helping companies operationally or with their customer experience. And those two things play nicely within the digital transformation kind of mindset. And the dollars are staggering based on the reports I've read. You know, $2 trillion globally being invested into digital transformation. So obviously, North America has their large share of that, and even in our markets of that subset, we think it's a really good time to be having those products and services and helping companies with it. In the small and mid-sized market, you know, they really can't do it on their own. They need a partner. They need product and services. They need expertise to help them walk through whatever that digital transformation life cycle is for that company. And that's really what Impact is. It has expertise in.
Nice. I'm going around the world and like giving this talk about what I've learned speaking with the greatest technology leaders on earth. And that's really exciting too, from going out from behind the microphone to like talking to thousands of people. And so one of the conferences accepted the talk, and then they're like, "Oh, we're super excited to have you, but we want you to do an entirely different talk." And I'm like, "Okay, what do you want the talk to be?" And they said, "Oh, well, it's about digital transformation and how to accelerate the growth of your company." And I'm like, "Why did you accept my talk? It's about creating better leaders." But then I sat down and I, you know, took a look at, you know, could I somehow tie people and leadership back to digital transformation? I was like, yeah, okay, cool, because I just picked different stories from different interviews and things like that. So ultimately, here's the title is 4 Habits of Digital Transformation Titans.
Okay.
That sounds pretty good. Right?
I'm interested.
Right? And it's learn how these industry titans navigate the digital transformation landscape and this engaging high energy talk. And then goes on, so forth. Actionable steps to implement today, navigating the jagged path of acceleration and transformation, and a clear path to thrive in an ever-changing ecosystem. So they accepted that. And so now I have to...
Now you have to create it.
Now do that. Any ideas?
Yeah, actually.
Okay, please.
We actually, you know, we have a huge event that we're putting on, and we did the inaugural event last year called Impact Optimize. And if you go to impactoptimize.com, you'll see what the event is this year. But it's digital transformation for growing companies, and it's a full day talk track, you know, conference with a lot of breakout sessions about how to actually, you know, get your arms around it. So actually our keynote speaker is Robert Herjavec, so from Shark Tank. And so he's obviously very prevalent in the security space, which is a huge part of a overall strategy for digital transformation. But we also have another keynote, Mike Jones, who is president of banking operations at CIT, about his own company's digital transformation and investments and how that paid off. And then we created, you know, about somewhere around 30 or 40 breakout sessions around how the SMB market can grasp hold of a few different strategies to take back with them. And so we really want this event to be something that people take action items back with them, not just educational, which it will be, but to figure out, okay, how do I get started and how do I actually do this? Because I read about it, I don't know where to start, and you have to be able to take something back with it. So that's one of our main goals, and that's one of the things that we're really looking forward to this year. We're looking to get about 1,000 people at the event. So it's going to be a pretty sizable event.
When is that?
August 8th. And I believe that our marketing people have created a special code for anyone on the Modern CTO podcast. So if you look to register, use a Modern CTO code with a discount, and there is some kind of discount rate. So, but overall, from going back to your topic,
give me some help for this talk. I'm giving in Miami.
I think one of the biggest things is the company has to have a culture that is willing to adapt, because we can build all the cool technology and implement the right software and all that stuff that the best of breed. If the company doesn't want to adapt, it's not going to adapt, and it doesn't matter what we do to help them with it. They have to have a culture of wanting to change the way they do business, wanting to adapt, wanting to modernize, and so if you get culture from ownership and C-level down to the organization that want to adapt, then that's when these things become really successful. And if I look at impact in our own digital transformation cycle that we go through and we continually go through, at first we had to get people educated about what it was and how to implement these technologies in impact, and we've been doing it with an impact for really the last 10 or 12 years. But it's accelerated because now people know what we can do. They've read the case studies from our customers. They've seen examples with an impact of what we're able to optimize and automate. And so now we have the entire organization coming to my team asking for help in these processes and reducing these manual steps and redundant activities and wasteful spreadsheets and wasted emails and so on and so forth.
So do you have the case studies on your website?
We have some on our website, and we're putting more on our website. And most of them we kind of control a little bit to talk to someone first to get an understanding of what makes sense, because you can check a whole bunch of stuff on a website. But without having a conversation with somebody, it's hard to understand what really they're looking for.
Oh, cool. So for me, what I'm looking for is I would just like to read 2 of them before I go up and stand in front of an audience and be like, this guy, this company, great.
For sure.
Yeah. Just because it's interesting. I went, 2.5 years ago, I knew nobody, maybe like the 5 closest people to me, and that was it. And then when we started this blog and the podcast and the book and everything, now it's like I know thousands of people. And I talked to, I did 500 interviews last year, right?
Wow.
And so there's always I like the person, I like the company, but then when I started thinking about when advertisers approach us, right? When they started to approach us, oh, we do this for your role or whatever. I was like, now I don't know, because if it was Intercom and they wanted me to do some chat thing, I'd be like, cool, because I use their product every day. And it's like, if it was AWS, I'm like, yeah, I get it. Or Heroku, right? But because I know it's good. But then for everybody else, when I'm not in industry, I'm just like, oh, let's look at some case studies so then I can be a fan, because I don't have anybody that I talk about in the marketing digital transformation world.
Right. Yeah. We've done some variation of, even before it's called digital transformation, again, really since I started at Impact. And we kind of focus on either making a process operational excellent as far as reducing redundant steps and stuff like that, but also if we can improve that customer experience. And the best is when you hit both those buckets within the same strategy or the same iteration of the project to address both those buckets. But we're looking at all that stuff at Impact is how do we make it easier for customers to do business with us, and how do we fulfill those requests as quickly as possible?
That's exciting, and it takes a lot of listening to do that, right?
Yeah, listening from employees, listening to customers, thinking, what are people not telling me, so we can think of something new that makes it easier for everybody. So,
Yeah, I got an outreach from the show. This one guy in the UK, he's asking me, he's like, I'm going to go interview for the CTO position that I really want. And I looked at the product and I have all these ideas and I want to go share it with them. And I said, well, have you considered, I didn't tell him what to do because that doesn't work. I said, have you considered just asking them what they're looking for? Right. Because I mean, that's a novel idea. That's something different. Because when you go up there, you're just going to imagine that they have all the problems that you see in their
right,
product. And, I don't know, but you don't go to your neighbor's house, knock on the door, and then tell them everything that's wrong with,
right,
with your
yeah,
house and then want to stay for a while. And so I was like, why don't you just ask them, what they want? And he was like, oh, that's really good. I was like, cool. I was like, awesome. So then he went and he did it. Right. And then he came back and he's like, oh, I have a second interview. And I'm apparently like the last three in the running. And they want me to present what I believe their biggest challenges are at the business. I said, great, you already have the answers. He goes, what do you mean? I go, well, when you had your first interview, you asked them what they
right,
were looking for. He's like,
yeah,
yeah. And he's like, oh, because I was going to tell them about like using their tech stack like this or doing this or maybe switching to this language. I was like, no. I was like,
the answers.
they gave you the answers in the first interview. The test is like, if you go put on a slide and present, those are the biggest challenges. He goes, well, what about all my ideas to have him, to improve? And he had this one that was actually like pretty good. It was like, oh, let's streamline the onboarding process since they want to double the customer
hmm
base. And they told me that it was slow. I was like, perfect. So put that in the business challenges, but also put it in like areas of opportunity, and then he went on to ask about the first 100 days and stuff like that. But I felt pretty good giving that advice. So I always like to cross check what I'm saying with people. So was that okay, good, bad?
No, I think you're spot on. When we meet with customers, a lot of times they're not sure, how, especially around the business process stuff, what that means to them. Around our IT services, there's a little bit of a more defined scope around how to manage that, and we do things, obviously, I think, unique and more customized, but specifically around our security practice, our managed security practice, and around our business process teams. There's a lot of unknown about what that means to that organization. So yeah, absolutely, you start by having conversations about, what are some of the challenges? What are you trying to accomplish as an organization? Are you trying to grow? Are you trying to streamline some backend processes and really get into the weeds around that? But you want to start with high level challenges, high level business goals, and then we have a suite of services and offerings that you have to try and connect to help solve those business challenges. And it doesn't take, a vendor, it doesn't take a product, it doesn't take any of that. It takes really a partner who's going to be with them long term, because there is no magic, rip the Band-Aid off and everything's solved. You got to step into it, you got to have a strategy, and you got to more importantly, align with what those business objectives are and lay that out. And in most cases, we're laying out a 3, 4, 5-year roadmap for that company, and working them through and walking them through each step of that along the way, amongst all things digital transformation. So everything from securing the network to managing their documents electronically, to optimizing business processes, to replacing their ERP system, to building an app for their customers to use, to marketing it and tying that all together into some kind of business strategy.
I love it. I like what you guys do. You cover a wide range of services, which is really useful, right? So they don't have to go run around everywhere and find vendors and validate
Right.
vendors in every area.
And that's usually what we're up against, is a combination of, one, they're not doing any of this today, or at least most of it, or the areas they are doing it, they have 4 or 5 vendors. And like I said, it's not a product, it's not a vendor relationship. We look to build that partnership with that organization, and they have to have the trust in us, and honestly, vice versa, because if we're working with them on their network and security and their ERP system and business processes, obviously customer responsiveness and support has to be the best in the business, because we have to be able to respond, really to any of those issues or challenges that may arise, because we're running that business with them. And the last place we want to be is not having the support we need in order to address an issue, regardless of how small it is, because it could affect 2 or 3 different parts of that organization.
Right. I like it. I like it a lot. As we wrap up here, I would like to know, what are you most excited about right now? Like, what's getting you up out of bed? Like, what are you super pumped about at work? We'll say at work, because we know like the kids are probably getting you up out of bed.
Yeah, right.
But,
yeah. The fact that it's not negative 25 outside, right?
Yes. Okay.
No, there's a lot. We've launched and are launching new products and services and growing those and building teams out of those. That's really exciting. But honestly, my focus is on this Impact Optimize event and making sure that we have the right content, we have the right people, we have the right takeaways, and that event's successful, because it really is going to be impressive as far as the lineup. And having Robert Herjavec is there, obviously big name, huge expectations on our part to deliver a world-class event that educates our customers, and in some cases not our customers, get them exposed to impact, but ultimately put some definition around what digital transformation is and means to their business. If we can do that to 1,000, 1,000 people, 500, 600, 700 companies, to me that's successful, and that's what we're shooting towards this year. So in August, so it's a lot of work, but that's probably has been taking up most of my time and a lot of my efforts. And obviously I'm passionate and excited about it. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing it.
I love it. I'm excited. Maybe I'll come up.
Come on down.
Yeah. I know I'm traveling a lot. I'm in Florida. Yeah. I know that I'm out there. I'm out in Chicago twice this year.
Okay.
But I know I think it's like April, May, or April and June or something. But I might be out there. I mean, you've kind of sold me on the Impact event. I mean, it sounds pretty cool.
In April, we may be in Mexico, so we might just miss each other. But let me know the dates, and we'll be sure to get you out to some of our offices, and maybe a Blackhawks game if they're still playing in April. We'll see what happens.
That's right. You're going to Mexico. Why? Because you hit your goals.
That's right.
Frank, this has been fantastic. I really enjoyed hanging out and talking about technology and leadership. You're awesome, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity to speak on your show.